everybody! My name is Joost van Heiningen and welcome at the very first episode of the Tales of Tourism podcast. In this podcast, we will take you on a journey into the lives of different tourism professionals. So people that are studying or studied either the Bachelor of Tourism or Master of Tourism here at Wageningen University. By doing so, we would like to help you with reflecting on your next study and career steps. This could be interesting for students, prospective students and alumni themselves. My name is Joost van Heiningen, I'm also a tourism alumnus and I'm your host of today. Today we have a very interesting guest. She did a Bachelor in Landscape Planning and a Master in Tourism here at Wageningen University. For her internship she explored the potential of circular forest cabins and she wrote her thesis on the resilience of socio-ecological systems. Today, she works as a recreation specialist in one of the most beautiful national parks of the Netherlands, the Hollandse Duinen. Moniek Zwiers, welcome at the show.
Yay, thanks.
Woo!
Did you know that we actually won a prize for being the actual most beautiful national park in the Netherlands?
You are? It's not available?
No.
Okay.
But this was, I think the last competition for this was like, I think 3 years ago. But up until this day, we're still like, yo, look at us.
So maybe I have to redo the intro then.
Yeah, maybe, but I guess it's fine like this.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, that's a very good note of you.
But I feel like that this is what celebrities feel like when they are being announced to go on stage. You know, it was like such a build up towards the moment where you introduced me.
Well, I mean, you represent the most beautiful park of the Netherlands, apparently. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, but maybe to give some context immediately, because there's one thing I really don't understand about your work. Because I announce you are working in the most beautiful national park of the Netherlands, but that's actually not your employer. Your employer is Dunea, isn't it?
Exactly.
And Dunea is a drinking water utility.
Exactly.
So why does a drinking water utility need a recreation specialist?
I get this question literally every time I tell someone where I work, and I completely understand it. So the official name of the drinking water company is Dunea Duin en Water. So that would translate to Dunea Dune and Water. And this water, the drinking water, is extracted from the dunes near Den Haag, so near Wageningen. And in those dunes, there's recreation. So we have like a division of water and a division of nature, basically. And then I work for the nature division. So I have to try to regulate as good as possible. But it's very difficult sometimes. But I have to try to regulate the amount of people that are visiting the park or the area, because it's just one small area. The national park itself is bigger than just the area where I work at. But yeah, that's why. But I totally understand why it's a confusing thing for me to say. But you have to see it like this. It's like the water company is paying me, but 50% of the time I work for the national park, or like I execute work for the national park, and the national park itself was once started as an initiative of Staatsbosbeheer, which is the natural forestry institution,
management,
company.
forestry,
I don't know. Well,
yeah.
I think most people know Staatsbosbeheer. But it's a collaboration between Staatsbosbeheer and Dunea, and now there are 50 partners that are joining. But initially, it was between the two of them. But yeah, I only work in a small part of the national park, so to say. But it is maybe the most visited place in the national park.
Well, you say you work for the national park, but what do you do when you work? Because a recreation specialist, I imagine so many things you might do, but what do you actually do?
Well, I actually do a wide variety of things. One of the biggest things I'm working on right now are basically two things. One is to make a new map of the whole area. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly detailed. So every little path is on there. So I get to be outside a lot to see if the path is actually there or that we just drew it wrong. But we're almost finalizing it. So in a while you could actually buy a map that I made. And I find that a very weird thing to think of. And another thing is the monitoring of recreation. So that is both quantitative as well as qualitative monitoring. For qualitative, we want to know the opinion or like the experiences that people have when they visit our place. And that's, of course, a wide variety of questions you can ask. I mean, I don't have to tell that to students that there's a wide variety. And for quantitative data, we're looking for the amount of people that visit the place, and then specifically people that come by car, by bike, are hiking, and that come by horse, because we actually also have a lot of people coming by horse. Sounds weird, coming by horse. I'm so happy I'm not a native English speaker. Anyway, but so we want to count the amount of people that come, but also at what time they arrive, because that's also very interesting. And based on that, we can also see if we need to change something about the time that the forest rangers are out in the field, because nowadays they start at, I think, 6 in the morning. And then the whole team is present at 9. But if we see that the spike of people coming to the place is at 7 in the morning, then we can be like, okay, maybe we need to have more people working in the field right in the morning at 7 already.
That makes sense. But how do you actually monitor it? Like, I have no clue how to do that, to be honest.
There are sensors for it. So you can place like, maybe you've seen them before, because like everywhere they use them. It's like these big black wires that are like on top of the path. I remember they were actually next to your house or our house, whatever. But
just for the audience, we were roommates like
2 years
two years ago. Yeah. So that's why we say our house.
Sounds weird. No, but and then you can just measure when somebody goes over it, either by bike or by car. The sensor will measure it. And for hikers, there are these sort of, I think it goes via infrared. So they notice when there's movement. And then you have to place them in a very secure location, because we also have a lot of wildlife in the area. So if there's like, 50 sheep walking past that thing, then the thing will count it as 50 humans. But that's, of course, not the case. So we really needed to find a place where there are where there's no wildlife coming. So we put it like inside the fence, so to say, because the animals will not go through the fence. So yeah, that's why we had to place it there. But it was very funny too, because first we put it on a separate pole a bit later next to the path. And then we realized, like, oh wait, this is really not smart.
You recorded too many animals, basically.
No, we didn't start recording yet, unfortunately. But it would have been funny too, because then, of course, we would have had a lot of spikes in like how many visitors we had at 3 in the night, for example, because that's when the animals are active. So, but yeah, luckily or unfortunately, depends on how you look at it, we discovered on time that we had to put it somewhere else.
Okay.
When I was studying, I also didn't know about all these different types of monitoring. I knew it was happening, but not at this big of a scale. So I learn a lot every day still. So don't think you don't learn things anymore after you're done studying, because I think that's the moment when it actually is starting. So yeah.
But do you have the feeling, if we relate to our studies, we both studied MTO, so the Master of Tourism at Wageningen University. If you relate back to your study, do you think what you learned during your masters is also very useful now at your work?
I would actually say yes and no. Sometimes I feel like I use a lot, and sometimes I feel like, there was not so much useful stuff. And I think for us, because our master's is a research master, and now I'm doing a very practical job, that of course differs a lot. So then it's not that useful. But one thing that I find very, very useful is that we learned a lot about international tourism and about different types of tourists, and just so many different cultures and perspectives you can have on tourism. And just to learn about diversity and different perspectives. That is so useful now, because even in the Netherlands, and even if it's just Dutch visitors, then there's still so much variety. So just to know different perspectives, that I find very, very useful, even if I'm not in an international setting.
So you really see this variety in the field itself?
Yes.
Like different types of tourists?
Yes.
Could you name some examples?
Well, this is definitely a result because of Corona, because the pandemic and the lockdown that we're in. And that has to do with that everything is closed. So if people want to relax or do something adventurous, going to nature, going for a hike or a cycling trip, whatever, that's basically the only thing people can still do. So nature at this moment is overrun by people. It's really too many people. But we also understand that this is the only option they have. So we understand that they come to visit us. But that does lead to some challenges, because there are also a lot of people visiting us that are really not used to going to nature. They're really city people. And and I of course don't want to be disrespectful to anyone, but there are just certain rules that you have to keep in mind when you're in nature. It's like you take your trash with you, you stay on the path, you put your dog on a leash, etc., etc. But there are people coming to us that put a tent somewhere in the middle and they sleep there, or they make a barbecue, but they really barbecue, because normally you would go to the park in the city and there you can barbecue on the grass field. But for us, it's such a dry area. We have like this like chance that it's going, like that you make a fire and then you have a giant bushfire at some point. But people are really not aware of that, and those chances are way less big than in a city park compared to being in a natural area. So we just have so many people coming from the city that really have no clue how a national park or just a protected nature area works. And it's it just, like, I would say every day there's at least one thing happening that we are all like, what on earth is happening here? But by now you're not that surprised anymore, because you just get used to it. But it is interesting to see like what people come up with this time. Yeah, but well,
that makes your work pretty dynamic, I would say.
Absolutely. That's why I also dislike to work from home so much, because I'm in the team with all the forest rangers. There are 2 other people in that team. It's just them and then me and one other person. And but all the rangers, they don't have to work from home, because what can they do at home? They have to be in the field. So I miss out on a lot. So every time I am at work and I am talking to them in a lunch break or so, then I can just listen to them like for 1 hour straight, and I'm still not like that. I still don't know everything that's going on, because there are just so many things to tell. It's ridiculous, but also very fun at the same time.
But isn't it a bit essential for you to know these things as well? Like, wouldn't it be good for you to be a bit more often at your work then?
Yeah,
or is this
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. By now it's like an unwritten rule that twice per week I have to be in the field. But I mean, we're still in a lockdown, so that's a bit difficult. And I also have to do quite some things on the computer. And I work at the thing that we call the production location, and that is actually about the water production. And there are people there that just have to work. They work with specific machines and stuff that they can just now work from home. And drinking water is absolutely essential to all of us. So I don't want to be in the way of them, So if I'm too often at the office, I feel like I'm maybe blocking someone else who is an essential worker, and I'm not an essential worker in that sense. So it's difficult to be in the field all the time. But for example, next weekend, the whole weekend, I will work, and I will just like walk behind a ranger and pretend I'm not there, but I will observe everything. So,
well, I mean, it sounds like you're pretty essential. Like if you're not there will be bushfires and
no, that's more the rangers.
Of sleeping in the nature reserve.
Well, that's not really up to me, but because I'm not qualified to give these people a fine or to send them away. But that's really the job of the rangers. luckily not mine, because I'm also not really made to do such things. So I'm glad. I once said I'm very happy to work with the rangers, because when I was younger, it was my childhood dream to become a ranger. But now I am working with them, but I don't have to do all these things I don't want to do that they do have to do. So I feel like, I get all the nice things about it, but not the like bad things. I wouldn't call them bad, but from my perspective, they are not as nice as the others.
So which things wouldn't you like to do then?
well, no, it's more like I can just not really get super angry at people. So I can get angry, but as soon as they yell back at me, I'm like, okay, no, just and I'm just not. Yeah, exactly. So I'm really not that confident to have that.
That makes a lot of sense indeed.
Yeah.
But would you say now then, well, maybe it's a bit difficult for you to answer this question, but because you started your job at the beginning of the pandemic, no?
Yeah, 1.5 weeks before.
1.5 weeks before.
I would not recommend.
Okay, I will come back on that in a minute. But do you think your job is equally relevant now, or maybe even more relevant or less relevant?
Absolutely more relevant.
More relevant.
And that has to do with the insane increase of visitors that we see every single day. Even on a Monday morning, we are like, okay, there are too many people here. And in the time that the kids were not allowed to go to school, for example, it was really every day that the place was just crowded by parents and kids, and they just run everywhere and they don't keep distance. And that's understandable. I'm not judging, but just an observation, But I think these times, they really call for the need of visitor management. And I think also a lot of, especially nature areas, they realize now that they were not really equipped to deal with the amount of visitors that we have now. But we also can see, like, demographic change, that we still have an increase of inhabitants. And especially in the Randstad, in the West, where I'm living, there are just many, many more people. And there are just continuously, like every year, there are more people. So maybe in 10 years, we are still on the same level of visitors as we are now because of the pandemic. So I think this is like a very abrupt, but a very good warm up for this increase of inhabitants in the Netherlands or elsewhere.
Yeah. So do you think that's also an opportunity for current students? Like maybe if they want to train themselves in an internship or a future job, I don't know.
Are you now asking if I offer such thing? But no, but
I'm not suggesting it. Maybe hinting.
No, but I absolutely think so, because I think visitor management is really like a very important thing at the moment. But it's not like this will not be unimportant. It will remain as important as it is, and maybe there's like a small decline next year, for example, when hopefully all of this is over. But I think in 5 years or 10 years, we will really be on the same level as we are now. So, and I mean, in terms of the amount of visitors. So visitor management is absolutely important and will remain important. So, pro tip.
Population-wise, and if another pandemic appears, then...
yes.
Okay. Yeah. Very clear. Maybe one question I still want to ask about your work, because we talk a lot about visitor management and how important it is. But what exactly do you do when you do visitor management? Because for me, that's still a bit unclear. I hear that you monitor, you're making maps, but are you also into policy making, or is that something other people within your company? Or
that's not what I do, but I do advise the policymakers. So I'm an advisor of the policy advisor, actually, because that's their official job title. Mm-hmm. But so things that we do is it's called zoning. So that means that you have like one area in the park where you have like a lot of facilities, and that's also where the biggest amount of people will come. Mm-hmm. And then you have another area where there's hardly any people coming. And you want to keep it like that, because most people come to nature to enjoy the silence or to just be at ease and to relax. But if there are so many people around, you cannot really do that. Plus, on top of that, which is maybe even more important, is the protection of nature. Because if nature is overflowing with people, well, I don't have to explain that, but we all know that is just very negative for the natural environment. So we use zoning, and that's also how we made our hiking trails. So we have 4 hiking trails, and 3 of them all start in that one place next to the visitor center where the most people come, because that's also where the parking lot is. So that's how we know that most people will be centralized in one place in the park. And then elsewhere, in our case in the north, there's hardly any people coming there. So that's actually where the nature is also like at its best, or as best as can be, because there's just no intervention of people that are just disturbing the place.
Because it's really physically noticeable if there are many people that nature is impacted.
Yes, you have, for example, now on the 1st of March, that's the official start of the breeding season for birds. And there's this sort of rule of thumb that if you have a hiking trail or a cycling path, that 50 meters on each side of the path, you can sense a disturbance for nature. 50 meters, so that's a span of 100 meters.
That's a whole soccer field, okay, whoa.
Yeah, it is really, really big. And the example of the birds that I want to tell is that these birds are sitting in the tree, and then there's a person who's walking outside of the path, and then they are affected by it because they're like, oh, somebody is like, coming towards me, I don't want this, and then they fly away. And then they come back later, but then they are not sitting on the eggs, so the eggs are not warm, and that's has a negative impact on their offspring. Sometimes the offspring doesn't even survive because the bird has been flying away way too often, and that is caused by humans, that it had to fly away. So there are a lot of really negative things that we as humans are not even aware of. I didn't even know that before I started working there. I don't know if dangerous is the right word, but
the magnitude of your actions.
Yeah, exactly. Like I never knew that walking outside of the hiking trail would be like so bad. I really didn't know. So I'm also learning a lot now. But yeah, it's really difficult to see for a human being what damage they are actually causing, because the damage that they are causing is actually invisible.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's like a bit like Corona. Like you can also not see that, but it's an absolute danger. So the same goes for walking off trail. I mean, it's maybe less drastic, but it's still like for these birds, it's really damaging their habitat.
I will definitely consider that the next time I go for a pee while hiking. So that's good to know.
And I think it's if you're just like 2 or 3 meters, it's fine. But some people really go off-road, really in places where they're not allowed to go. And that's hundreds of meters away from the path. So, you don't have to worry about like 5 or 10 meters. I mean, my boss probably doesn't want me to say this, but that's acceptable. But if you go further, then maybe that's, something you can consider next time you're in nature. Let me just say it like that. I think that's the friendliest way. Also, put your dog on a leash. That's even worse.
Yeah, but I mean, that's very obvious that it's bad. No, just for all the wildlife that is around there.
Exactly. But, you have these people, and now I come back to those city people because they don't realize this. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful, but these people, they say like, oh, but my dog is always staying on the path. Yeah. Up until the moment there's a deer like 20 meters away, and then the dog is like on his hunting instinct and like going in one straight line towards the deer. And
Squirrel dog.
Yeah, or that though. But but people are always saying like, that's just very typical for dog owners. Maybe we are derailing, but they always say like, oh, my dog never does that, but yeah, they do.
My dog was always the cutest.
That's true, Ko.
Coach, yeah.
I love him.
He would never do that thing. Okay, on that though, maybe let's go to the next topic. because I also want to talk with you about life at Wageningen University or studying at Wageningen University, both. Literally go back on the nostalgia train because we were both in the same class, which was really amazing. But I think I actually never asked you why you started to study tourism in the first place, because you did landscape planning at Wageningen University, but after that, tourism. Why?
Yeah. So I started off with the bachelor's called Landscape Architecture and Spatial Planning. And first I chose architecture, and then I was like, this is not for me. I go back to planning. So I was a bit searching for what was really my cup of tea. And right at that moment, I had a relationship with someone, and their family actually invited me on a trip to South Africa. And, I came from a very small town, from a poor family, and we never traveled a lot. So I didn't really have much of an interest for tourism. So then I came in South Africa, which was like a culture shock for me. And I noticed there how many things were wrong with the tourism industry, and then specifically like Western tourists going to a country that's not Western. And I saw so many things, and I was like, oh my God, this is really, really not okay. And the others in my travel group, because we were with 6, they were all like, what are you talking about? We have a hamburger, just eat your hamburger. And I was like, I'm in South Africa, why do I have to eat a hamburger? There are also... Well, whatever. It was not about hamburgers. There were so many things. But
the hamburger that convinced you to study MTA.
No, it was more like in the national park, in the Kruger National Park, you had like these. I think they are ruled by the government, like these campgrounds, and then you had a menu of pizza and hamburger, and I was like, where am I? Am I still South Africa, or did I just teleport to a different place? Because, well, anyway, so there were just so many things that I noticed. Also smaller things, like related to, Western people and then the people working for them, so a lot of diversity and maybe racism probably as well. And that got me thinking. And at that moment, it was also the time for me to choose a minor. Mm-hmm. And I saw this minor, I think it was called Tourism, Conservation and Development, something like that. And it had some courses from sustainability, introduction to leisure, tourism and environment. At that time it was called. Well, anyway, It was just some introductory courses. And I remember I had the first class. And the teacher is not working here anymore, but his name was Michael Marchman, I believe. I don't know if that
heard very often about him, but I don't know who it is. But Michael Marchman.
So it was the first lecture, and after 20 minutes, I was completely sold. I was like, this is what I want. This is so incredibly interesting. This is what I want. So that whole course was just amazing, and I'm still very thankful for Michael to be such a good teacher, because he really brought me on this path of tourism. So that was the moment where I decided, like, okay, I want to do tourism after this, because that's the tourism master's is called, or used to be called, leisure, tourism and environment. So that's what. How's it called again now?
Now it's called MTO, so that stands for Tourism, Society and Environment. Don't ask me why it's TO then, but I think because the Bachelor of Tourism is BTO, so Bachelor of Tourism, and then the abbreviation makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think the name is also more fitting, like Society and Environment. So
because leisure is not covered that well, I would say. So society and environment is a better name in my opinion. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. So, well, anyway, so I started that master's, and when I was doing it, maybe it was my mistake, but at the beginning I didn't know it was a research master. And
I had the same.
Well, maybe students now know it better than we do. That was maybe our fault, I don't know. But knowing that it was a research master's, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do after studying, could be a PhD, but maybe I also wanted a practical job. I didn't know at that time yet. I figured I would do some more practical stuff as well. So that's why I did a bit of extra courses in nature conservation, because throughout time that also got my interest, maybe because of the globally there was more awareness on climate change and on how important it is to protect nature. I guess I just jumped on that train as well. So I did some extra courses in that, and as I was like ending the year where you do all the courses and you had to look for an internship, I figured like, okay, maybe I should do a bit more of a practical internship. So I know the theoretical courses, but I also have some practical experience. And that's when I came across this internship that was in collaboration with Staatsbosbeheer. And it was really a big dream of mine to work for Staatsbosbeheer or something like Staatsbos, or in a national park. And so I figured I would do that. And when I was there, I had to be in the forest in the north of the Netherlands, and I was with these rangers, and I was like, really, this is what I want. Like, this is really, really what I want. And then I still had to do a thesis as well. So I did that in the north of the Netherlands as well, actually, but then not so much with Staatsbosbeheer. That was really more like a theoretical thing again.
But the Staatsbosbeheer thing you did with Cabiner, no? The
Yes.
entrepreneurial guys with the circular cabins.
Yes, so they have these circular cabins indeed, and they are placed in the forest, but the forest is then managed by Staatsbosbeheer. So that's why I was working for, again, such a weird connection in my work, but so I was working for Cabiner, but also working with Staatsbosbeheer.
You like to have these confusing constructs,
Exactly.
but in the end are very nice. So good for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was because of working for Staatsbos or Staatsbosbeheer that I landed the current job I'm having. So I'm really grateful for having that experience.
It was because of that?
Well, the thing is, the vacancy I applied at, whatever. That one was asking for 2 years of work experience, and that is, I think, for people who have just graduated, that's the problem we all have. It's so difficult, but I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna try anyway. So my letter, I really focused on the experience I gained when working for Staatsbosbeheer, and then they were like, okay, so she apparently does know quite some things about, forest management and stuff like that. I mean, not like I had very good skills in it, but, I just bluffed and it worked. So
because the length of your internship was 2 years.
Yes, it was 2 years, more or less. Yes. Yeah, no, that's what I seemed it to be, or pretended that it was in my letter, but then I had the actual job interview, and then they were a bit like less enthusiastic, maybe, I don't know, but maybe I probably did something right.
So your boss did discover in the end that you didn't have 2 years of work experience and still took you in.
No, he of course wrote down that it was only 4 months. I didn't lie.
Okay.
I just added like a little bit of spice on some things, so whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I also got my job through a senior application where I had to have like 5 years of experience, I think. So I think it's normal to do that at the start of your career.
You just have to try. I mean, if you don't try, then you definitely have no for an answer. So you just have to try and just pray every day. No, it's really, really difficult nowadays. So I also really, I worry about current students and the job market after the pandemic, because I think it's really tough. So keep it in mind. Do not be pushed back if a vacancy says you need to have 2 years or 3 years, whatever, of job experience, because just try anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a very good advice. Yeah, because for you landed a job with 2 years, or that asked for 2 years of experience. I had the same experience. I also know from some other MTO alumni that they had exactly the same, that a job vacancy required 3 years of work experience. But if you try and write an interesting letter, that people can still be convinced, like, oh, actually that's a very nice guy or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe let's just come over for an interview and see.
Exactly, because I mean, it's on the other side, like, you are starting with a clean sheet. It's not like you're already shaped by a specific way of working. Like, I now at this moment, I have a specific view on how to deal with nature and how to deal with tourists.
You're polluted in your mindset.
Well, basically, I mean, yeah, you're laughing, but it's actually true. So, I think it's not always a bad thing to have no working experience. It's just, I mean, there are pros and cons to both situations, having work experience and not having it. But sometimes the pros of not having work experience definitely outweighs the cons of it. So, yeah. But still, it's difficult nowadays. I mean, in my time, it was also difficult. But then there was at least no pandemic, so I'm very blessed.
But do you think it will be more difficult after the pandemic or right at this moment?
I think right at this moment it's very difficult. But after, as I said before, I think visitor management is really on the agenda of so many people now.
Mm-hmm.
Or so many institutions and organizations working in nature, I mean. So I think that's where there are really possibilities, because people are just so aware of the importance of regulating visitors in a correct way.
Yeah, because maybe if you can reflect on the future anyway, how do you think the future of tourism will look like? Maybe in the Netherlands or globally?
Oh, that's a really tough question. I will just say what I hope, okay?
Yeah, okay, so, go for it.
Because I find it really difficult to predict it, because I have no clue, because I just wish everything would be greener and people would think twice before buying that €10 ticket to Barcelona, because, you know, it's cheap, so I have to go. No, but so I really hope there will be more awareness, and also I wish there were, and I'm not really familiar in the field, so maybe these things are already there, but I hope that there will be companies that are doing these package tours, but then like the eco-friendly version. So where you, instead of flying, you maybe take the train and then you do like a round trip, either by public transport or you rent a car there. I think that's still less polluting than flying there. So but I really hope that the mindset of people is going to change after this. But on the other hand, I feel like people didn't really go to travel almost 2 summers in a row now, and that they will be like going in like one straight line to the beach and be like, I didn't do this in so long. I really have to make up for all the time that I missed. So maybe it's going to be like overflowing as well. So yeah. As I said, I really don't know how to predict the future, because it's, I think, very unstable for tourism in the coming years. So let's hope it will turn the right way, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's difficult to predict indeed. Yeah, I guess I also see it happening that maybe people take a vaccination and immediately after that get into the plane.
Yeah.
Like a vaccination post right before the airplane.
Yeah.
Like, so long, guys, I'm going to the States.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's understandable, but yeah, just let's hope not everybody is like that, because I also think it was a good time for people to actually like discover their own country. As weird as it sounds, because it's so weird, because there's so many people saying like, oh, I've never been to this place or this, or I did this, and people never did it before. They just flew to another country to enjoy the beach there, but you know, there are also very nice places here, and there are more and more people discovering that now. So I hope that maybe that's like an ongoing trend where people remain to be in the Netherlands. And I'm not saying you're not allowed to leave the country at all, but just to, you know, discover more of your own environment.
I think the pandemic really did that, like open up this niche to really rethink your own environment in your own country, and to enjoy your own environment. Because Dutch people, at least many Dutch people I know, indeed always had the attitude, including myself, like, yeah, the Netherlands is boring, it's not beautiful, blah blah. But now if you just go into the forest around the corner, okay, it's not the Amazon, but still there's a lot to see there, and a lot to smell, and a lot to touch. Exactly. So yeah, it's super lovely, and I hope indeed that people will still have that mindset after we are allowed to go everywhere again. So yeah,
I hope so too. But I'm also very how do you say, like, maybe naive, I don't know, but I feel like it's not going to happen. But
well, at least people have the mindset right now.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Before the pandemic, like there was not even this niche, you know. The niche opened up now, and let's see what stays.
Yeah,
I'm pretty positive about it. I think
Alright.
it will boom. Of course, like after people get vaccinated, but after that, I mean, people are not going to travel for a year immediately. So I think some of that mindset will still stick around.
Yeah, I hope so. Let's see. Maybe we can reflect on this like 2 years from now and see what's going on.
Listen back this recording like, oh yeah.
Oh, so stupid.
You were so wrong, so naive, man.
We'll see.
No. Maybe one thing I still want to talk about is your thesis, because we only covered that in one sentence, I think. Do you have any good memories of it, or you just want to skip the topic immediately?
No, I have good memories because I really learned how to be independent there. I mean, it was not like I wasn't independent before, but the thesis is really like a challenging period where students, for the first time, really have to work on their own for 6 months. Or at least 6 months. Well, anyway,
if you're a really good student, 6 months.
So I'm not a really good student in that case. No, it took me a bit longer, but that's really fine. I mean, life's short, but also long at the same time. So really don't worry about any study delay. But so my thesis, I actually wrote it about the UNESCO Global Geopark De Hondsrug.
Well, I expected some fancy English name there, but okay, de Hondsrug.
The Hondsrug, no, that's like a mountainous. No. It's a slightly elevated area in Drenthe and Groningen, the provinces in the Netherlands, north of the Netherlands. And they have a very rich cultural history, but also a rich geological history. And the UNESCO status is rather new. We all know the World Heritage status, but we don't know about a global geopark. I also never heard of it. I just saw it when I was visiting my parents in Drenthe, and I saw a sign saying UNESCO Global Geopark, and I was really like, what on earth is this? But it's actually super, super interesting. It's the only one in the Netherlands so far. But yeah, I did a research on like on their resilience and their adaptive capacity. So in case something bad happens, like, hey, a pandemic. I didn't write about that. Oh, I should rewrite my thesis with the knowledge I have now. But no, so I wrote about possible things that could happen, and then how they could react to it, and how they could adapt to it. So adaptive capacity.
So maybe last March they took your thesis out of the drawer, like, oh, let's see what Moniek said again.
They first had to get rid of all the dust. Exactly. Is this corona, or am I coughing because of the dust? I don't know, I should call them maybe, or not. No, but so I wrote that, and I thought it was a very useful time.
Mm-hmm.
It is tough to write a thesis, I will admit that. Sometimes I would really work from 9 in the morning until 10 in the evening. I would work in the building Gaia, and I knew the security guy at some point that well, because every evening he would have to kick me out. But I was, and that's really something for current students and prospective students, I want to say, is that you really should try to find someone to write your thesis together with. And of course you have your separate thesis, but really find someone like a buddy to be like, hey, let's meet at 9 and then we have a break at 10 and then we work until 12, like really have someone that you can tag along with, because together you can motivate each other. And for me, that really, really helped, because I did it together with a good friend of ours, Emma.
Oh, Emma, yeah.
And we basically sat in the same room every day together, and that helped me so much. And then there was a time that she wasn't there, and I was immediately like, oh no, what do I do now? But, that's, again, a learning lesson, but that's super useful. So it will make you feel less alone, maybe in this long, tough process called thesis writing.
No.
Yeah, well.
So are these skills, the loan thesis writing skills, are they still useful now, like 2 years later? Because 3 years later already, yeah. 3 years, I think.
Don't say such things.
Okay,
Yes.
whatever.
No,
In
no,
the
no.
past.
I feel old. No, but they are useful because of this monitoring thing I just told you about. I will also do a qualitative monitoring, which is where I have to interview visitors, and we will also send out a survey. And before I started working at Dunea, they already made a survey and then they gave it to me, and I was so incredibly critical that I basically put the whole thing in the trash, because I was like, no, this is really not good. But then I realized, like, oh wait, maybe doing a thesis for a university is on a bit different level than just to see what people think of your nature area. So I took it out of the trash and I just rewrote a few questions. But that was actually a really useful skill to have. And to be really honest, when I started this job, I didn't think I would use so much of these research skills. But it turns out I actually do. So yeah, I'm very happy with that now. It really paid off.
That's really good to hear. Yeah. Because I personally also struggled a lot with my thesis. I do see the value now, but when I was writing the thesis, sometimes I was like, probably I don't want to get a research job anyway, so why am I doing this?
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear indeed that we both think positively about what we learn from it.
Yeah, so I get that. I also think in my case, it was also interesting to build like a bit of a network. Because I still know some people that I, for example, interviewed or from the internship. I know some forest rangers still, and sometimes we are, I mean, really not often. Don't think I talk to them on a daily basis, but like once every few months there is something popping up and I'm like, oh, maybe I should inform this and this person about it. And this is how we stay in contact. And, you know, I think having a network is super important. So you will find that during thesis time as well. So it's not just research skills that you develop there. It's also personal skills and some social skills, networking skills. So it's more than just writing some pages in Word.
And in terms of career tips and tricks, because this is really a tip, basically, like, you can build up your network during your thesis, also during your internship, I reckon. Do you have other tips and tricks for students like that they can develop now, skills that they can develop now, which are very useful later on?
One thing I wish I had definitely done earlier, and I mean before I started my job hunt, was to explore the field, like to explore what kind of companies there are, what kind of institutions, organizations, etc. Because I knew of a few, but only the well-known ones. But the ones that are smaller, like the one I'm working for now, this company, I had never heard of this company before. Like, I really never ever heard of it. I didn't even know about the national park, and now I'm working for it, you know. So it's really important to what I did, for example, was on LinkedIn. You would look up a company and then you see like suggested companies or like similar companies, they pop up. Just click on those as well. Maybe save them make a bookmark for it in your browser. But you know, it might always come in handy. And then at some point I would just like click on all of these websites of all these organizations and company, and it would just go to vacancies. Well, nothing. Okay, next, nothing. And then, but at some point you will know more and more companies and organizations in the field that you're interested in. And that's how you also sort of kind of build up a network in that sense. So it's not just having a network of people, but also to have like your own network of companies that you could potentially write a letter to.
So that was your magic trick to find all those nice vacancies all the time. Because Moniek, when I was jobless, was sending me vacancies all the time. And I was always wondering, like, how does she do this? Like,
yeah, that's true. I would send them to you and another friend, and because you and the other friend are often in the same field. And I will admit now that one time there was a vacancy. It was actually the one you're working at now. I didn't send it to the other dude because I was like, no, because it's actually in Wageningen and the other dude doesn't live in Wageningen. And I was like, no, Joost is such a good fit for this job. Okay, we don't talk about the 5 years experience that they were asking, but I was like, and it's in Wageningen. I will have to send it to Joost and not to the other dude. So there's less competition. But yeah, this is a result of like 1 year of active LinkedIn usage. And I'm not saying that LinkedIn is the only place to go, but it's definitely useful.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
But did I actually tell you how I found the vacancy that I applied for? And
No. Please tell me.
It was actually because of our good friend Arjan Pellis.
Oh,
because
okay.
it was not like he sent the vacancy to me. It was just that he liked it on LinkedIn, and that's how it popped up on my timeline. And then I was like, Dunea, what is Dunea? But the title was Recreation Specialist. So I was like, okay, that sounds very interesting. And I remember I clicked on it, and the job description sounded so nice. And I was immediately like, oh my God, and it's in Wageningen, on the beach and in the dunes. And I was so enthusiastic. And then I was like, oh wait, maybe I should Google what Dunea is. But then I came at the drinking water company website, and I was just as confused as
totally
you
confused.
were.
Yeah.
So and I remember that once they hired me, that I still had so many questions. I really had so many questions. But yeah, I really I also wrote an email to Arjan saying like, yeah, you don't know, but you actually gave me a job. Yeah, it was really, really funny.
That's so weird, actually, just because of a like.
Yeah, really because of a like.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it's really weird because, what are the odds that I just happen to see it,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm really, really grateful for it.
Oh, well, thank you, Arjan, for liking these things on LinkedIn.
Yay,
it's definitely
keep on liking.
Maybe staying in the career choices vibe, probably you also made some mistakes when you were in your career path. Like, I mean, it could be at work, but also towards finding the right job. What would be the biggest mistake you made in your journey?
Not preparing myself for an interview at all.
Why would you do that?
I know. You asked me about the biggest mistake. I will give you it. No, but so it was actually a really nice job. I don't really remember the name of the company, but it was like a tourism consultancy office. And they were located in Arnhem, so it's close to Wageningen. I was like, that's perfect. So I wrote my letter, and they invited me. So I was super, super excited. And that was it, I didn't do anything. I just went there, and I was like, oh, I have to pay for the train, and I'm so poor, That was the only thing I was thinking of. So, but then I came there, and I actually had a lot of fun with these two dudes. But they would sometimes ask me questions, for example, about my thesis, and I was like, my God, my thesis is a year ago. I don't know anything. So I was there sitting like, I think so.
Just about your empty wallet,
yeah, something like that. No, I didn't ask them if I could get a refund. No, but as I was sitting there, I was like halfway through. I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. So when they called me, I was like, yeah, I already know it. But I did have a lot of fun with these dudes. Like, we were really laughing super hard. So they also told me like, yeah, we will reject you, but we will tell you we had the most fun with you. So you would be a good fit in our team. And I was like, yeah, well, that I know, but work-wise, maybe not so much. But yeah, it was a good lesson. So for the next time, I would definitely prepare like specific answers to questions, potential questions they could ask.
So did you land the next job interview or not?
I actually think that was the one with Dunea.
Yeah,
I think so.
That's cool.
But I'm
like
not sure.
Maybe mistake.
Yeah, no, I think maybe there was one in between, but I don't really recall that time that well. I don't know.
But still, it sounds like you had quite a positive experience, even though you were rejected. No.
Yes and no, because it was actually the first like really bigger job that I applied to. The others were more like a bit of simpler jobs that were not specifically in the field. So then if they reject you, you're like, yeah, okay, well, next. But this one was really in the field and actually sounded super interesting. And then when they reject you, it's not nice. But, I saw it coming. It was definitely my fault. So, it's fine. But yeah, then I really think the next one was for Dunea, actually. So it was actually a rather short time that I had to look for a job. But I also have to admit, well, as we said before, nobody thinks of a drinking water company when you have a tourism degree. So that was definitely something that worked in my favor, because that's why there were not that many applicants.
Yeah.
So I also don't know if they are actually happy with me. No, I guess they are. But in the beginning, to me, it felt a bit like, I was the only choice. So that's why I'm here, So... I know by now that I'm a good fit, but in the beginning it felt a bit off or something.
I really never experienced that, being the only choice. Like, for me, it was always like, oh yeah, there are 50 other candidates at least. Like, it might be that we call you back if we have time.
I also had that for a PhD, that you could actually see, you would get like a number, and that was based on like which person you like the... How do you say
Which
that?
applicant number you were?
Yeah, something like that. And it was in the 2000.
Oh,
and then I also got this rejection letter, obviously. And it also said we got thousands of applicants.
That's crazy.
And I didn't hand it in just before the deadline. I handed it in a week before. So that probably came really way, way, way more. So it's, I've been on both sides of the coin. Just let me say it like that. But for Dunea, I think there was one other person, but she was at that time still studying, and she also didn't know when she would be finished. So then, that's also more difficult, of course, if the employer doesn't know when you can actually start. So
yeah, that was a pro for you.
Definitely.
So are there any other water companies or water utilities in the Netherlands that need recreation specialists? Vitens, I guess, no? Or?
I don't know if they have recreation. I just know a PWN. PWN, that's in North Holland, and then you also have Waternet, and that's the one for close to Amsterdam. They are close to our field, or to our area, I mean. So with them, I actually work quite a fair bit.
I hear the pencils scratching on paper at the other side.
Actually, they have a vacancy right now, but then for a forest ranger. So that's not really our field, but being a forest ranger is very nice as well. So maybe check that out if you're interested. It's just that you have to speak Dutch for this. So, sorry.
Yeah, and do you maybe still have other tips for students or people that just graduated, like in the process of finding a job after your studies, your bachelor, your master?
I have two things. One thing is or maybe that's not applicable to everybody, and I know this is a sensitive topic maybe, but for me it really helped me to have a financial plan. So I had a certain amount per week that I could spend on groceries and stuff, and I knew it was really going downwards, my savings. So I knew okay, before the end of January, I really have to find a job. So I gave myself a certain amount of weeks. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks in which I was actively searching. I was okay, if that doesn't work out, then I will just take a small part-time job that will just pay the bills. And then besides, I can either relax or search for an actual job. But for me to have this financial plan really helped me to stay focused. I mean, we all know we need to have a job to pay the bills, but for me it was an extra incentive to look for jobs, because I knew I had this deadline on which I didn't have any money anymore, and that's a bit of a problem. So
really to create a bit of pressure, because otherwise it's kind of a daunting job to do, applying for jobs?
I think so. But I mean, for me, the way out was to have a part-time job next to it that would pay the bills and pay the necessary things, and then I could relax the rest of the time. And my other tip that I want to say is maybe a bit contradicting, but just know that it's okay if you don't find something right away. It's okay if you don't find something after 6 months. It's really especially now, times are so difficult. Don't pressure yourself too much, especially not when you finally get a job, but it's not the one you wanted. I mean, you have to start somewhere. Nothing is set in stone. If I've learned one thing, really nothing is set in stone, and you can change still when you're 60 years old, and you can still choose the career you actually want. So there will always be this one dot on the horizon that you can look at, but if you don't see it all the time, it's really still fine. You're still an amazing person. So that would be my first and foremost tip.
I can fully agree with that indeed. I personally also had a bit of a difficult time to find a job. Initially, I didn't even put pressure on myself. Like the first few months after graduating, I was like, you know what, Joost, you deserve holiday. So just go take holiday.
Very good.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
After that, I couldn't find a job for quite some months. I think almost half a year even. And that was rather frustrating, but I did notice in the process that it's really valuable still to try and to not give up and not get frustrated, because quite often, even if you get rejected, you made a ball roll somewhere. People will remember you. And that's still what I notice now, half a year later, that people are still contacting me for like, oh yeah, that great letter you wrote the other day, or that great interview I had with you. Yeah, I'm still sorry that I couldn't take you back then because there were many nice applicants, but still I remember you. So even though you will get rejected pretty often, it's normal. It's not because of you. It's because there are many people that want the job.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be an advice for me personally. Like, okay, don't take it personal, and know that even though your efforts feel useless, it's not. Like in the end, people will remember you, and yeah.
But it's also for personal growth. Like I would write quite some letters, but then the fifth letter I would write would already be so much better than the first one.
Yeah, definitely.
And maybe that's also a bit of a depressing thing to think about, that they become better, but you still don't have a job. But you know, that just the skill to have to be good at writing a letter is so important. So. But I think what you just said, that people still remember you after an interview, is also quite impressive. So,
yeah,
yay!
Yeah, but that's good what you say about the skills, because indeed the skill that you write better letters, but also the skill to take rejection better, and also not personally, because the first rejections I got, I think in the end I got more than 50 rejections.
Oh my God!
But the first 10 of them were really hurtful. Like they really made me sad, especially after interviews where you were enthusiastic and you felt like, yeah, they are going to take me, and then in the end, no, we are not taking you.
Yeah.
But in the end you understand, like, okay, it's not you.
Yeah,
there are just many great people like you out there that want a job, and you just have to be patient, and in the end everything will be fine. Yeah.
That's a very important thing to say indeed. I agree completely with you.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, we have a very positive ending, I would say. Is there anything else you would like to say to students, or maybe prospective students, people that don't study tourism yet and maybe consider studying tourism?
Take things slow.
Take things slow.
Really. And surround yourself by nice people. I mean, not too close these days, but no, but that's one maybe last thing I want to say, is that in the time when I was searching for a job, it can be frustrating, lonely, and you know, all of these negative things. So really try to surround yourself by people who are either going through the same thing or not. It doesn't really matter. Maybe you can find support if people are going through the same thing, but you know, just support each other, be there for each other, because you know, as I said, in my time it was difficult, but nowadays it's probably worse. So yeah, just be nice to each other.
one love.
Yeah.
No,
that's definitely the Wageningen vibe. I feel like it's just people are always so connected to each other, even though they are so diverse, and that's what I love and absolutely miss about Wageningen University. Yeah,
you miss Wageningen.
Yeah.
Well, now you're here in the university. We're in the labo actually. So
I have to get one thing off my chest though, because
okay,
I felt so off. Bus 88 is not called 88 anymore. It's now C3. I am so confused. I feel betrayed.
There was a Facebook post in Wageningen Student Plaza about this, that people were rebelling against the change of the bus number. So you're not the only one. You're not alone.
I will look it up, because I need to, I don't know, I think I will go to the Malieveld this weekend to demonstrate.
Just for that. I want my bus back. Okay, then I guess we can wrap up the episode, huh?
All right.
Or you have any last words on your heart that you want to release?
I just hope we can travel again soon. Domestic as well as internationally.
I really want to go to Groningen, so
I actually would like to go to Groningen. No, but Joost, you should come to Meijendel, where I work.
I know.
I invite other people to come as well. I can show you around.
Meijendel is really beautiful.
Yes.
Actually, it's really beautiful.
It is. Have you been to the place called the Kijfhoek en Bierlab?
What language was this?
This is Dutch. It took me some months to actually be able to pronounce it. But that's I just was talking about zoning, and this is actually the area where only 100 people per day are allowed to come, and the area is quite big, so you will not come across anyone there, and it's amazing. It's really amazing. So, but you do have to buy a ticket before. So,
but with you, we can go for free.
I can take one person or two. I don't know.
It's not allowed with the corona rules.
Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Oops.
Know your rules, lady. No. Okay, on that comment, let's wrap it up. Thank you, Moniek, for being my guest, for being a guest on this show. It was really, really nice talking to you, as usual. But now I actually also learned something for you.
That's great.
Yeah. No, I mean, normally we're just joking around all the time. But it's super interesting to have more insights into your career. So, many thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if you as a listener want to know more about Moniek, you can find her on LinkedIn. Her name is Moniek Zwiers. You can drop her a message, I guess.
Absolutely, yes.
When do you respond on average?
Since I deleted everything from my phone, I would say a few days. Could be longer. No. I will try to do it a bit more.
Okay, so if you plan to go to the beautiful Meijendel and send her a message at least 3 weeks up front, then you're sure she will respond in time.
Oh, no, it would actually be nice to show some people around.
Okay, so after this episode we will go to Meijendel, so let's get ready to go. If you want to re-listen or share this podcast, you can find this episode and the following episodes on most of our socials. An overview of our socials can be found on the official Wageningen University BTO and MTO websites. If you're interested in playing an active role in this podcast, or maybe you want to be a guest, feel free to drop an email to the BTO or MTO study advisor, which you can contact through the official Wageningen University website. For the next episode, we will have a really cool guest again. Her name is Indy Schumacher, and no, she is not family from the famous Formula 1 driver as far as I'm aware, but maybe she will drive here like crazy at Wageningen campus, I don't know.
In bus C3.
Anyway, she is a BTO alumna, so from the Bachelor of Tourism, and she's currently working as a sustainable tourism consultant at Sea Going Green, which is an NGO here in the Netherlands. We will announce more info about the next episode on our socials very soon. I hope you're checking in then again. For now, thank you for checking in. We are checking out. See you next time.